at 6:02 p.m. And so you all should have a packet with the minutes from last time, along with the article that we're going to be discussing today. So looking at the agenda, really the first thing that we have on the agenda is the approval of minutes. So we do have the minutes that were sent to everyone this past week. There does need to be an amendment to the minutes. We do need to add member James Baggy under the absent list, but that is really the only thing that we have as an amendment to the minutes. So I'd like to open it up for any discussion on the minutes. Changes, comments, concerns on the minutes other than that amendment? Okay, then we will go ahead. I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment as presented. Can I get a motion to approve? Chris Flower makes a motion. Any discussion? I'm sorry, do I get a second? A second?
Second.
Second by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, so moved. Minutes are approved with that singular amendments. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify, the minutes were sent out in the packet. They're
Yes.
not in front of them.
No, it was. Yeah, it was sent out this week.
Okay.
Yes, I did clarify that it was sent out to you this week in a packet online via email. Yes. Apologies.
You'll say, I saw people looking.
Oh, apologies. No, it was sent out earlier this week via email. Apologies for the confusion. So as you know, we've kind of, this is has been really our third meeting. The first one was intro. And then the second one, we went over the first article. So this is really the first meeting where we're going to kind of go through a full process of going first, reviewing the article last time, and then starting the meeting with the review of the discussion items for approval from the last article from the last meeting. And then we'll go into that second article today. But before we do that, I do want to go ahead and open it up for citizen comments. Any members of the public have any citizen comments? Anyone here? Okay, looks like we don't have anyone here for citizen comments. So I'll go ahead and close citizen comments and go ahead and move over to the next agenda item. So first, I know that we have some questions and some items that we requested our city attorney to review. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our city attorney to review those items before we go over the Article 1 changes that we discussed last time. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm looking up for the city attorney. I had it from a minute ago. There were three items that I think came up and needed reconsideration or discussion. End of the last meeting. First had to do with multifamily property being approved by council for new applications and amendments, and the mayor having veto authority. The second was police department having staffing based on statistical data. And the third was an at-large council member being added to our existing composition. We need to distinguish, and this is applicable to all of our discussions, not just tonight, but also going forward, between things that are operational in nature and things that are structural or fundamental to the composition of city government. And then things that are already covered in some perhaps detail by state law or another. Multifamily properties, applications for rezoning to multifamily are covered by state law in relatively graphic detail. In order to apply for a zoning change on a piece of real estate, whether it's from zero zoning or agricultural to commercial, residential, or multifamily, the process is comprehensive, it's detailed, and rigid compliance with the requirement. It requires a series of notices to be sent to everybody who owns property within 200 feet, and some cities expand that to 500. It requires posting on the real estate with a sign, internet posting, as well as publication in newspapers, local circulation, general circulation. It requires planning and zoning commission review and recommendation after a public hearing, then a public hearing at the council level. So putting that something further, if to the extent that it might conflict with state law, a charter provision would be invalid, wouldn't be applicable. It's already covered in a fairly graphic detail that mandates comprehensive and relatively detailed citizen involvement in the sense
That's for rezone.
for any zoning
Is that rezone?
to rezone to
Well, it's
adopt.
already zoned. There's citizen,
If you have commercial property and then you want it to be used for multifamily property, you have to rezone it.
what if it's already zoned for that purpose?
If it's already zoned for multifamily, then we can't adopt an ordinance that changes that zoning, but we can't, I'm sorry, we can't adopt.
Are those things up for review?
Say that again?
Are applications for building those types of
Building permit?
subject to review?
Building
Even if
permit?
it's already zoned for it previously?
If it's already zoned, then it's a use by right. And all the property owner needs to do is apply for a permit. A permit is reviewed and granted or denied on a ministerial, non-discretionary basis. If it's zoned for multifamily and you own that piece of property, you can construct a multifamily development on that real estate without asking for additional permissions other than the ministerial permit application process. If the property is zoned for single family, commercial, something other than multifamily, and you want it zoned for multifamily, you've got to go through that rezoning process. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
They
So
may
if
not
it's
do
not
that, but
zoned for it, then it's subject to public hearings and zoning applications, but it's already zoned and people say, enough. I don't want a 1,000-unit complex in my neighborhood. They're SOL, is what you're saying.
if it's already zoned for multifamily, the property owner has a vested right in the use of that property for multifamily purposes. If they submit any permit application at all, and then we try to change the zoning afterwards, it would not be a valid change. They have a vested right in pre-existing regulations. They haven't applied for a permit and it's multifamily. We can change the zoning if we want to. That's an operational and a political decision to do that. But you understand that the property owner who owns that land has the right to complain about that. I've gone around the block with property owners and multifamily developments for decades. If we have to notify them that we're changing the zoning on their property. If they submit a permit application for anything at all. I had a developer once under exact same circumstances, actually had somebody walk up to City Hall and literally throw a roll of papers at the city secretary and walk away. And that was their application. That locks in vested rights. We can change the zoning all day long, but it will not affect their ability to develop under multifamily regulations. You understand that?
Yeah, I get it.
Right, so what you're talking about, I understand where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with the concept behind that. But that's not necessarily a charter thing. That's an ordinance thing. If we wanted to create ordinances that made it more difficult and we were willing to take the risk of being sued, for taking in inverse condemnation, we could do that, but it's not done by charter, it's done by ordinance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You know, when I read in the charter in section 2.06, number 9, the power is vested in the city council. They can actually decide.
Well, 2.06 or 2.09?
2.06 hours.
All right, 2.06,
Let's see what-
section or subpart 9 gives the council the authority, and although it probably already has it anyway, to adopt regulations for any done.
I mean,
Yeah,
so it's basically lobbying your council member.
yeah.
Prior to a permit being given by right.
That's right, yeah, and, you know, and it's gonna go before planning and zoning.
Yeah.
With the council that authority over it.
Now, now, this one of the weeds, but now is that, you know, multifamily property owner wants to add provisions where, for example, a certain amount of units would be for attainable housing within a certain threshold, then that would be something additional that would have to go through certain, you know, city council review and planning and zoning review, because that's outside of the terms of what's allowable in that area, right? That goes into the weeds, but generally it is allowed by right. We would get sued if we do anything after that.
Typically what we see nowadays, and it's not limited to Farmers Branch, but in a number of cities, most cities. Yeah, there's been a trend, by the way, that initially was aggressively opposed to multifamily and then kind of shifted about 15, 20 years ago to allow it under limited circumstances for more diversified housing stock. And I'm not talking about Farmers Branch, I'm talking about regional.
Yeah.
The trend is now shifting back towards, I want to say absolute opposition, but moving back more towards single family and less towards multifamily. Um, but what we see now more than anything else is that developers will want multifamily, but they will want things that go beyond strict requirements of our existing ordinances, and so they'll apply for plat development zoning. PD zoning still can't allow multifamily, but we have to, under those circumstances, negotiate conditions that we think are most appropriate for not just that piece of property, but for that community in that area. And that's done through a negotiation process that involves P and Z public hearings, P and Z recommendation, council public. That makes sense. So, but the mayor having veto authority is something that might be a charter proposition. There are some cities, not many, but there are some that give the mayor the authority to veto virtually all ordinances. You can't single out multifamily zoning ordinances because that looks like it's discriminatory and possibly in violation of federal housing regulations, but we could consider if we were inclined to recommend the adoption of a charter provision that would give the mayor the authority to veto ordinances passed by the council, kind of like the governor does in the state of Texas. But if we wanted to consider something like that, it needs to have some limitation. The mayor must veto within a matter of a couple of days. Council would have the authority to override the veto with the supermajority vote. That's typically how veto. That would be under chapter 2, order. Yeah, order 2.
But you're not talking about the mayor being able to squash a particular housing project.
They have an absolute authority to kill an ordinance. Doesn't,
Not an ordinance. You've been. Yeah.
oh my gosh, we can't do that. You give it that authority to one individual, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Doesn't work with the council manager, but among other things, I mean, it works when you have like a monarchy, but not necessarily for Lieutenant John. The second one is requiring police department staffing increase or decrease based on statistical data on surrounding area. That's not fundamental to city government. That's purely operational. I would be hard pressed to even come up with language that I could put in, or even a section or an article of the charter, that's something that would be appropriate for, and circumstances change too over time.
Yeah.
So this is not a structural thing that deals with city government. This is an operational prerogative that the council needs to consider and adopt by ordinance or something like that.
Yeah,
Or
and
the
just,
budget process.
yeah, and just for some background, usually that those discussions approve the budget. All that process, it's just for some background regarding that particular item.
So the last item was that large member to the council, so that we would have 7 council members, and the concept would be to enable the mayor to have a vote, not just as a tiebreaker, but just make the vote, and that gives an odd number. So we would have 5 district representatives, 1 at-large, and 1 at-large mayor. All of them would have voting authority. I think it's a great idea. Don't know if it would work. We are currently under a federal mandate by virtue of litigation that goes back a period of more than 10 years, with a judgment that says that we are required to have single-member districts. Our existing single-member districts were approved by the Department of Justice more than 10 years ago. The judgment contains a provision, however, that says that
would expect you to put a charter amendment out, it would draw litigation. just based on the contentiousness of what we went through earlier.
It was horrible. That was before my time, but I heard it was not good. So.
It was fun. I'd say that would.
No, I know exactly how you feel, but I know exactly what you mean. I'm not suggesting that we couldn't consider it. And litigation wouldn't be right and couldn't be filed unless and until actually we're bust brought it down in the process. But, you know, the litigation, that litigation was more than 10 years ago. Department of Justice and the Voting Rights Division have really pretty much backed off. It used to be where every time you wanted to annex real estate, you needed a DOJ pre-clearance. But yeah, about 5 years ago, I mean, time for me now is changing, but it was about 5 years or so ago, the DOJ came up with a rule that said that the Voting Rights Act prohibitions that were applicable to a series of states, Texas being one of them, are no longer applicable because it's been fixed or cured. And so that may also be, that same thing may apply to our judgment. But y'all understand, if you wanted to go that route, I'm not saying that you can't, I'm saying that you could, but it may not work depending on what that DOJ gives pre-clearance and if you wanted to actually go that far.
Would there be attorney imposed upon the city or DOJ review?
Yep. Well, the attorney's fees, though, the pre-clearance process really is a letter. And then ideally some phone conversation.
But an attorney would have to draft the letter.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would probably be me.
That would be.
I would expect we'd end up having to hire an expert attorney, an attorney who deals in the election law.
Inexpensive one.
I
would expect-
I'm a cheap boy.
I mean, to the extent the attorney we had is still practicing, he was pretty well versed on it. So if we have for pushing this or talking about this anymore, it would maybe make some sense to see if we could even get a pre-clearance or what the process would be before we invested too much time in this.
That would make sense.
I really would hate to see we try to put something, we come along, we recommended, council agrees, we put it up for a vote, and before we even get to the vote, there's some lawsuit to enjoin that issue being voted on, and then it creates a problem. Or we pass it, the council puts it to the vote, citizens adopt it, and then litigation, and it stays for 2 years, 5 years, whatever it takes to get through the courts of appeal and maybe the Supreme Court. So I think that if we do decide to talk about it more, we see if our council could give us some insight, or it doesn't, for our council.
Yeah, but the point of it all is that there is some risk in dealing with that. And if you want, we can look into it further, figure out exactly what's involved. But I will say this, last time I asked for DOJ pre-clearance for anything, the response was really odd. We've already, look at our website, the laws are already out there. Thank you very much, have a nice day. And the website doesn't say anything, and it was literally with that terse and that succinct. But
Right.
if we want to think about it, then we take it to the next step, but when we get to that part of the charter, we can talk about it in more detail.
Well, I'm just wondering what the impetus for that would be. I mean, there's no saying if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there seems to be opening Pandora's box for what reason.
I think the person who brought it up said that it seems like we're divided into little neighborhoods and where our proceeds to say you. Yeah, so
That is,
not saying it's not broke.
that if we could perhaps giving the mayor a little more say in the running of the city.
It's just like how we have it in House of Representatives and Senate, micro and macro.
Well, 3 districts with 2 at large.
That, yeah, you said 3 districts, 2 at large, you say keep your districts in there, which is probably the safer bet with the DOJ. Yeah, large, mayor at large.
Yeah.
It seems to me that asking for the pre-clearance would be a smart thing to do now, just so we can find out if it's a non-starter.
I think that what he's saying too is that based on his experience asking for the pre-clearance and the like, well, we'll just go to the website and there's a very similar thing there.
May not want to give us more clearance. But we could ask, I mean, you know, ask.
I think based on the conversation, I think we just need more information to be able to even consider anything of this nature. And I think for us, it's being able to, what is the option, right? You may go back and say there is no option, we're not allowed to do it, and then that's a moot point and we can't move forward. At least currently how, we have the approved, Department of Justice requirement. So I think, my recommendation, and would love your thoughts, is kind of how we have our city attorney going over some of the items of discussion at the beginning of this meeting, maybe you going back, seeing what the process would be to even request something like that, and then coming back at the next meeting to see if it's even a topic of discussion based on what we have.
Yeah, we can do that.
Because then it's a moot point if we can't even, if they say, no, we can't do anything based on the approval back in 2009, more than 15 years ago.
That all assumes that there's enough interest on the part of the commission to move forward in that direction. We take the next step and try to get some background on it. Absolutely, we can.
But you're gonna have to know eventually, unless you wanna be hamstrung by the DOJ ruling for the next 100 years.
You're assuming that-
At some point, if you wanna change things up, you're gonna have to get approval from them.
Yeah, that's true. Because forever and ever, we're stuck with 5 single member districts, which is a bit unusual for most cities.
Just to be clear, though, this is a pretty major structural change to the composition of the council. And nobody on the council or the mayor's office has suggested this, right?
They haven't, so I think this is more so, let's at least get information, so it's there. Because obviously, it's being recorded, so maybe it's something that they haven't thought about before, and maybe there is some interest there. I'm all for just at least we have the information, to your point, Brian, for future consideration. It may not be something we'll consider, because it may not be something that we can consider, but at least knowing, okay, in the future, as we grow, maybe the next census, they, count more people, and then that entails a whole nother conversation. We're not quite there yet, but, census is in 4 years, so we have to start thinking about that too. And I think the power conversation will continue that discussion, in this section today. So I think my recommendation would be to at least, let's get a little more information before we even consider it, before we take the time to discuss this for hours and hours. If we, at the end of the day, we realize, oh wait, we discussed it for 3 hours and then we can't really do anything because the DOJ said no. But at least if the information's out there for future consideration.
We get back.
So is this something we wanna discuss at the end?
No, this is something that he's gonna go back to get more information, and we'll do it at the next meeting, similar to what we did with these 3 items. So, and I think that is the last item conversation that we had.
That was
Yes,
last
Mr.
item. That was-
Yeah, okay, perfect. No, you're good. I just want to make sure that was the last item that we had for, that was a holdover from last time. So what we'll do is if there's anything that does require some type of background information or city attorney review, then we'll discuss that at the beginning of the meeting as well, just like we are going to discuss, which is the next item. We'll discuss the items that, that were up for discussion for potential change from the last meeting. Sure.
Just on the first item was, that we talked about the mayor having veto authority, and then you said that could be a conflict.
But it's under this section 2 that we'll get to. The veto power conversation, it'll be in the section 2, yeah. That's why I didn't expand on that conversation, because it's under section 2, under section 2, and under the power, section 2.06 or 2.09. Yeah, so that's, yeah.
Yeah, that's clear what vehicles might be there, so.
Sure. Okay, so next item we have is, C3, discuss the revision to Article 1, Section 107. So there were 2 particular sections that we discussed for potential review for this meeting that we need to vote on. But the first one was more of a recommendation around, looking at the end of the discussion, at the end of our charter review, if there's a possibility to make a change to the description of the city, just so it's not so long, based on how many potential changes we have. Like if we have 15 changes, what's adding one more, right? But if we have, a couple, it just tends to get longer and longer and longer. And so, so we're not gonna vote on that. We're gonna discuss that at the very end based on what we have going on as far as any potential adopted changes. We only had 1 provision, from last time for discussion and potential approval. And this was regarding section 1.07 in Article 1, general powers adopted of the city charter to consider approval of the recommended amendment to the city council. And really the change was shortening that, simplifying the language and correct grammatical errors. So looking at C3, the red line section, as you can see, there's about 8 lines or 9 lines that were omitted. And so replaced with a small sentence. So instead of the enumeration of particular powers in the charter shall not be held or deemed to be exclusive, but in addition to the powers, etc., that whole section was replaced with conferred upon the city by law and constitution. So as it reads, 1.07 would now read, the enumeration of particular powers in the charter shall not be held or deemed to be exclusive, but in addition to the powers conferred upon the city by law and constitution. So we're shortening it and correcting some of the grammatical errors in that way. That is the only item that we had for discussion and potential approval.
Yeah, when I received the package and I looked at that as well. And
Yeah.
to me, it just seemed a little terse in that it did not, I wrote that the draft proposal should state the jurisdiction of laws which grants our city enumeration authority. And I went and I pulled up the Capel chart to see how they worded theirs. And it wasn't quite as long. We didn't have all the run-on sentences and everything that the original one had. But I think it explained it better. And Ms. Flores printed this out. Did everybody get a copy or?
No, just you.
Oh, just me? Okay. But, and I'll read it if it's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
The enumeration of the particular powers of this charter shall not be held or deemed to be exclusive, but in addition to the powers enumerated herein or applied hereby, or appropriate to the exercise of such powers, the city shall have and may exercise all powers of local self-government and all other powers which under the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas, it would be competent for this charter specifically to enumerate. And the draft proposal, when I read it, it just didn't look right because it just said law. Upon the city by law and constitution. And I thought to myself, well, which law? I just maybe scrutinizing a little bit, and I'm not an attorney, but to me, it just, when I on first blush, it looked a little bit like maybe it was just too abbreviated or too short. But I made a copy of this and
So really, we just need to add the Constitution of the state of Texas. Would that,
yeah, I mean, if anything that would show which laws that the city uses to enumerate its powers.
yeah, I think where part of the discussion was, I think it may be understood based on the rest of the language, but I don't think there's an issue with just adding and being more precise. Yeah,
Yeah, and the other thing is when I looked at both charters, it just states constitution, but it doesn't state which constitution.
sure.
Is that for a reason?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone just says law is also for a reason.
Okay,
Shorter is always better.
yeah, see, I'm not an attorney, so I'm
Look, when it says constitution, that means both the US Constitution and the state constitution. When it says law, that means all of the law. That means every case, every statute, and all of the laws and powers that are implied by them. Even if we're not enumerated, we have to be specifically enumerated. All the powers set forth in the Texas Local Government Code. Well, there are other authorities that emanate, sources of authority that emanate in other provisions of Texas law. You couldn't get all of them.
Right.
And even if you tried, there may be an amendment to a statute and the one that changes it. Keeping it short, from my perspective, I like it better, shorter and sweeter. It's not to say that Capel's charter is wrong. I think one of my former partners probably wrote that years and years ago, like 50 years ago. And that was an awful long time ago. Now, this is just Dave Berman. This isn't the Farmers Branch Charter Review Committee. This is Dave Berman. Having it shorter and sweeter, I think, is always better. the less you say, the more it means.
Yeah.
And hence the reason why it's shortened from a large confusing paragraph to a really small one sentence. E equals MC squared. You know what I mean? So, but I'm not the one I'm just recommending.
I like this.
I like short, but the version you have is way better than what we had.
Okay,
Way
yeah,
better.
absolutely. That-
I wouldn't be opposed to at least looking at it and saying if it's, towards adopting or having something a little longer than laws and constitution.
I like Capel's. Capel's is good. If you want to say more than what's already down there, Capel's is fine. It says what it needs to say.
Yeah, we were asked to take a look at the different charters.
No, yeah,
Oh, yeah, you're doing it right.
did your homework, Chris. I like it. Yeah, no, like,
Just 2 cents worth. I agree with our city attorney. I think concise is better. And it says what it needs to say. And I like that. I think you can get tangled up in words. And, like I said, you're not an attorney. I'm not an attorney either, but I know exactly what that means. So, anyway, like I said, 2 cents.
any other comments? I think,
My knowledge
I think Patrick, you said you liked it.
My knowledge of law is based on TV shows. What I've seen.
So it's
you
all
haven't-
true.
It's all true.
But what I've seen, if it's short like that, you don't say what laws or what constitution, then that just opens it up for someone
Yeah.
to take advantage of, the vagueness. So I don't think it would be a bad thing to say the state of Texas Constitution and not, whatever, New Mexico's. I mean, all laws, all states and provinces and what have you, right?
Yeah, I think,
It just implies that it's the local law and the. state
it's implied because obviously we wouldn't be able to,
It's not specific.
yeah.
Just to
Go
point
ahead,
it back, section 1.05 says, we're under the laws and the Constitution of the state of Texas. It's already said in 1.05.
Good point. And I think that was part of the conversation last time is we already discussed it in the previous sections. And so why have to repeat it again in this section
Okay.
since we're already,
Thank you.
okay, all right, so. With that, that's the only item that we have, up for potential change from the first section. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to amend section 1.07, general powers adopted with the changes discussed today. That's on that's on your packet.
To clarify what specific changes to what,
Section 1.07,
understand.
the specific changes under the red line section that is in your packet.
That's what.
This is what's in the
Cause-
packet. Again, we didn't print packets for everyone. It was sent in their packet. But I pulled it up here so you can see, this is the language, the final language. Nick, we'll start printing entire packets from now on, so there's.
Yeah, I think they don't have that in front of them.
Move that we approve section 1.07, general powers adopted as noted in the staff report.
Perfect.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? Oh, we have, I can do, we have a second already, thank you, Pam. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposition? Okay, so moved, we have our first change, been approved. And now section 2. Okay, all right, now we're gonna go over section 2. The council, titled the council of the city's charter. This is agenda item number C4. The way we're gonna go about this is we do have a number of, recommendations from council that are under this section. So I think what worked very well is going in section by section. And so we'll go over section 2.01, discuss if anything, section 2.02, discuss if anything. If there is an item that was under the council requested topics, I'll go ahead and bring up those first for discussion. And then if there's anything else that is, that you all would like to bring up for discussion that may be germane to that section, then we'll go around the room and entertain that discussion. Does that make sense? Is everybody okay with that? I think it worked pretty well. Okay. The first section, so we'll go over each section by section. The first section is section 2.09, 2.01 under Article 2. That's Number, selection, and term. The council shall consist of 6 members, a mayor, and 5 council members. The mayor shall be elected by the voters from the city at large in the manner provided in Article 7 for a term of 3 years or until a successor has been elected and takes office as provided in Section 2.04. The 5 council members shall be elected by the voters residing in a particular district, 1 through 5, respectively, in the manner provided in Article 7 for a term of 3 years or until their successors have been elected and take office as provided in Section 2.04. There is no council requested topic that is under this Section 2.01. There is one that is somewhat germane regarding the succession and when someone is elected or resigns, but that's actually covered in a different section. So if anybody had something like that they wanted to discuss, that is gonna be covered in a different section because that is an item that was shared by council. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns regarding Section 2.01? Okay,
We
great.
talked about the at-large, is that parked under here?
The at-large, I think, would be parked under the section, but that's what he's gonna take back and we'll have more information next time. Next time, we are gonna consider items that were, brought up for potential change from Section 2. So this will be appropriate to continue the discussion once we get more information. Yes,
Yeah, I'd like to comment. One of the things that a few of the council members had suggested was moving elections from May to November because they wanted increased participation and I think possibly cutting down on costs. One thing that we could also consider is the fact that a 3-year term puts us out of step often with state and federal elections. And so you could either choose, and I'm sure this is a big change, go to 2-year terms or to 4-year terms so that we stay on the same schedule. Just an idea.
no, yeah, so actually that is gonna be, discussed in Section 7.
Okay.
And so if that is something that we end up doing in Section 7, then we have to look at what other sections are affected by that, and this would be one of them.
Okay.
So we'd have to go back, but you're right, there are certain cities that have made that change, and so they've had to change their election cycle terms. And a lot of them are staggered, so then you have to decide and pull strings as to who's gonna stay and who's gonna go, because some of them are gonna shorten and some of them are gonna be longer.
Okay. Makes sense.
So we'll discuss that in Section 7.01. And then if we decide to make that change, then the attorney will help us figure out which sections then have to be amended to be able to ensure that we, my buddy over here
Okay.
will help us figure out which sections need to be amended to ensure that
Yeah.
is true throughout the charter.
Got it.
Yeah. But yeah, that is one of the items that we'll be discussing in 7.01.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So no discussion over 2.01, Section 2.02. We do have a couple, so I'll go through it and then, we will, go over each of the items that we currently have under topics of discussion from council. So Section 2.02, qualifications, code of ethics, removal from office. 2.02A, the members of the council shall be qualified voters of the city who have been residents of the city for at least 1 year, and except for the mayor, a resident of the city council member district from which the person seeks election for at least 6 months prior to the date of election and who shall never have been convicted of a felony offense. A person elected to office of council member from a district must continuously reside in the district during the person's term of office. Members of the council shall hold no other public office except that of a notary public, or they may be a member of the National Guard or Naval or military reserve. When any elected or appointed official of the city, including members of appointed commissions or boards, files for election for any elected office or position, including but not limited to federal, state, county, or city office other than that position presently held by the person, or where their term of said position does not expire either before or simultaneously with the commencement of the term of the office or position that is being sought, his or her existing office shall be deemed vacated as of the date of filing. A former employee of the city shall not be eligible to be elected or appointed to the council until at least 2 years has lapsed since the termination of such person's employment with the city. B, the city shall be, by ordinance, adopt a code of ethics applicable to members of the city council and to all appointed officers of the city. C, a member of the city council may be removed from office in accordance with the procedures set out herein in Section 2.19 if the council member lacks at any time during his or her term of office any qualification for the office prescribed by the charter, willfully violates any express prohibition of this charter, is guilty of official misconduct as defined in section 9.18, is incompetent as defined in section 9.17, is convicted of a felony offense or any offense involving moral turpitude, fails to attend 3 regular meetings or 25% of the regular meetings in a 6-month period without being excused by the city council, or knowingly violates the city council code of ethics. That is section 2.02. Now, we do have a number of items for discussion that were proposed by council, so I'm gonna go over each one. We have quite a few. So the first one was one that was a topic from Mayor Pro Tem Tina Bennett Burton. It's discount city council decorum. And so in this particular section, going into these items, there wasn't a lot of discussion around council decorum, from the recommendation that was given by Mayor Pro Tem Bennett Burton. But there has been some discussion on it if you've been keeping up with city council meetings in regard to decorum by the city council members. And so, wanted to go ahead and see if anybody had any comments regarding that particular, item for discussion, city council decorum. I think that probably would go under, would it go under misconduct?
Clarification, are we talking about the forum during city council
During-
meetings or in general?
Honestly, that's all we have from Councilmember Bennett Burton was discuss council decorum. So I'm assuming it's just general council decorum, so I'm assuming I think we can't, as far as the charter goes, I don't think we can discuss anything that is not officially under city council business. So I don't know if it would even make sense to even discuss how there is lack of decorum outside of official business, right? And so it would have to be, I assume it would be under official business. So during city council meeting, events, those types of things.
I guess without some detail, some explanation, we're all sitting here, we can come up with some thoughts, maybe we've watched a meeting, we've heard a complaint that's been filed, some vote's been taken and it's accepted or rejected. But this gives us 0 direction, and if somebody wants, a council member wants us to consider something, they need to give us some direction, some insight about what it is they see the problem, because otherwise, I'm worried that we're dealing with an issue between 2 people, not an issue between the entire council. And we don't need to be the referees. If they're adults and they can't get along, they need to grow up. Or they need to figure out how to get with somebody that can help them work out their issues. And not get the 23 of us here to play referees or to try to read their minds and side with one or the other or 2 and 3. Fine. So.
David, when in a meeting place, if you decide on the rules of, debate that is that an operational item? When a committee gets together and say, we're gonna follow, the debate structure, whatever, lay out, that feels operational to me, and I think I'm in agreement with our vice chair here about this feels operational.
It is operational.
Yeah.
We have rules of procedure and that will be reconsidered by the council at some point in the near future that control those kinds of things.
Yeah.
We also have code of ethics that controls us. It's council does it to themselves.
So I failed to share there. It wasn't just Bennett Burton. It was actually also the mayor. He added some additional context to it regarding decorum. A provision should be added to guard. So going back to you need some direction. A provision should be added to guard against frivolous alleged ethics violations being filed against any member of council by another member of council. So this is specific to, I believe it's not having a council member be able to continue to file all these ethics violations without proper, you know, background, I'm assuming background or proof of sorts. But Mayor, Lynn specifically said, or is requesting to look over including a provision to guard against frivolous alleged ethics violations. Yes,
So, yeah, I was thinking of this too, and I'm wondering, I think it went to someone else's question about, does this apply to in session council meetings, or does this apply to 7 days a week, 24 hours a day? And is it stuff that's found on social media, is it stuff that's blurted out in council session, or?
and I think that's something that we would need, if we decide to add a provision, then we would need to add those parameters of.
Has this been a problem, frivolous ethics,
There have been a number of ethics violations that have been.
not violations, frivolous reporting?
Accusation.
Accusations.
How do you judge that?
Well, that's the thing.
The fact that it's rejected doesn't necessarily mean that it's frivolous.
I know, that's,
So
I'm wrapping my head on how you would.
But there is a process in place.
Who's making the determination what's frivolous and what's not?
And that, I think, the person that's making the determination is, if you file an ethics violation, then I think it goes to the city attorney, does it not?
In some circumstances, it would go to me first and then back to council. Report.
So there's a violation, and then we have our city attorney or a third party that advises whether it is indeed a violation. And then it gets reported, and I think the ones that have been reported were these not violations.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, we'll do Todd and then Patrick.
I've only been really paying attention to what's going on in the city government for the last two administrations. When Mayor Dye was there, we had a deal. I started seeing a lot more ethics deals and this and that. Now, you got Terry Lynn there and a different, pretty much a whole different, same thing, different actors. And that's what I'm seeing. It's almost like, they're definitely, I'm seeing more out to get. Back time it was Mayor Dye. Now I'm seeing it's Mayor Terry Lynn. There's definitely people out trying to get improve the point, make the case, and instead of the council working together for what's best for the city of Farmers Branch, they're in there doing petty BS. And I think most of the people that I know where I'm at is sick of it.
Yeah.
And we need to come up with something.
Yeah, grow up.
Todd, Patrick, and we'll go over here. So Todd, are you, yeah,
To your
Yeah,
point,
that's,
politics is a contact sport.
yeah.
All across the board, but I was gonna ask, I mean, it sounds like the solution to something this is we put something in the charter. But is there a censure process that if everybody in the council agrees that somebody is abusing this process against another member, but not the council vote to censure or take some other action? And then again, that would be operational, not.
That would probably fall under that section 9, gross incompetence.
and I think there is a process, right? They have to go through ethics training. There is a process if you violate, and that's where there is that process for an ethics violation that you could submit. My opinion is that if somebody believes they have enough recourse to prove there is an ethics violation, then they should be able to file an ethics violation. And then the experts, which is our city attorney, can then send it to the state, and the state can decide whether it is indeed true an ethics violation, and then it goes back and it's not true, and then it's like, okay. You know, I think we have a process for that for a reason, and I feel like people should be able to exercise that process.
What are
Now,
the rulings?
what frivolous is, you know, that's enough for the beholder.
When you set it up to poll, what are the rulings? Violates, does not violate, is there something, a ruling that says that there's no merit?
Yeah, there is.
Is there no merit? Then you could say something like,
What is the
if you submit to no merits, then you're out of the council, right?
Yeah. Can you share what the process is?
So
Why, let's.
I don't wanna short circuit
Sure.
the conversation, but, what we're talking about here, the recommendation that you guys have received, you know, with all due respect to the mayor, this is really a provision that if a council member should be sanctioned for filing frivolous complaints, should that not be a provision in the code of ethics that the council adopts and the council enforces? And the charter simply says the council shall adopt a code of ethics. After that, it's up to the council to do what it thinks is most appropriate. So I would be really uncomfortable with the charter provision that said something like, the council shall adopt a code of ethics. And by the way, if a council member files frivolous complaints, because the problem is that there are a range of sanctions that can be imposed. There are limitations that are rather strict and serious regarding the sanctions that can be imposed by council members that invoke all kinds of constitutional prerogatives, and the process is cumbersome and difficult, and holy cow, it's a nasty process. And it's unfortunate that we have that every once in a while. But trust me when I tell you, Farmers Branch is not unique in that regard.
Sure.
There are some cities where there's peace in the valley and it can last for years, but inevitably it's a cycle to go back to that kind of, context for it. So I'm not quite sure that having a provision in the code of ethics that determines that someone who files complaints with the sanction is an appropriate place for it. It's more appropriate in the code of ethics than it is in the charter.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that I agree. Yeah.
The charter just says you have to have a code of ethics. And the code of ethics can say if you file frivolous code of ethics complaints, then we are gonna punish you.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Sure.
And who,
Oh, sorry, you go and then Jack.
so I agree. This is a governing document, not a disciplinary document that we're working on. So if we have the code of ethics, who gets to revise it? Who makes the decisions on that? The council. So if that's the case, then that's the appropriate.
Bring it back to council.
That's the
Yeah.
appropriate case for them to police their own members, not for us to try to do it.
Or for the voters, they ask what that means. They try to.
Janet?
I see reference to code of ethics in section 2.02. Obviously, it's referenced in the heading there, and then it talks about it in B. Where is it? I've been looking for the actual code of ethics. Where is the?
It's all over the place. You can look at the city's website. I just looked up just a second ago, get to the home page. It's right there. It's its own individual link on the front page, but it's code of ethics. And actually, I'm looking at it right now online. And it has every version that we've ever adopted, as well as a link to the complaint form and a link to a document that explains the complaint procedure.
I looked out there, but I didn't actually see a document that.
There's a small link under the title that says to view entire code of ethics. And you click on that, it's very small.
But there's also, the other thing is that it is embedded within our code of ordinances. Most cities have it in their administrative chapter, which is typically chapter 2.
So when you click on it, it goes to code of ordinances.
No, but if you look up the code of ordinances online, which is readily available on the website, and bypass the links that take you directly to the code, you can go to the code of ethics, you can go to code of ordinances, and look up in chapter 2, here it is, article 3, code of ethics. Purpose, application, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it's not short and sweet.
Then you do something in the search bar and go directly there.
Probably look at those, let's see.
Any other discussion regarding the decorum question?
I have
Okay, we'll go to Chris,
a
Michael.
I think, this sums it all up in section 2.19, and we haven't got to yet. It says, council to be judge of qualifications of its members.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And again, goes back to, so I think for this one, we're gonna have to hunt it back to the council for amendment for, code of ethics. So, Michael, did you have anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna say a few minutes ago, and you used the term right. But I understand that our city council and all of our committees and boards, and so forth, are supposed to be political. And I think that a lot of this is coming from that, maybe not, that's just my, I think, yeah, the thing to do is council needs to police its own
Yeah.
members, and in
Under the code of ethics.
2.19, as you say, it does.
And they can decide, and you have two council members that are bringing up decorum, so at least,
But perhaps In this list of, in 2.02 here, you got A, B, C, C, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe we need to add our number 8 before,
I mean,
That's just
maybe not.
a word with no description.
yeah,
It is.
yeah,
Right, I mean, what we've got to, if we're gonna send something back, it's gotta be something that, where the terms are defined either within or they are everyday common.
I
language.
agree.
This isn't something we can deal with, it's something they need to deal with, my thought, but we need to send it back to them and say, you need to look at this within code, maybe you add a provision, come up with your provision for censorship, which I think is probably the right word, is if you think it's bad enough, you come up with a process for censoring frivolous complaints or frivolous allegations. And it pushes it back on them. It makes them be the adults in the room, if that's a problem.
and I think, yeah.
I agree with that.
Sorry.
So I don't want to make it sound like it is, but I suspect it is because
Otherwise,
two
two
of them.
members wouldn't be breaking
Right.
it up. And the other thing too, to think about all of this work that we're doing through a lens of, is there already a methodology around making changes to something, whether it's an ordinance, whether it's a policy, whether it's, and in this case, it's kind of like what our attorney kind of mentioned in the beginning, you know, operational versus structural. Is there another area to which this could be handled outside of the charter, right? And in this case, there is. So that's kind of, I think, the lens we have to keep looking through. Is there something, there's a method already, whether it's a state method that's already, you know, implied, whether it's a city method outside of the charter, and in this case it is. So I think we'll just put it back if everybody's in accordance with that.
I would like us to punt it back to them though with very specific directions is this is not for charter review. This is something that you guys need to do and make a very clear message that then maybe they start being a little more introspective about, okay, maybe we aren't doing things the way we ought to do. Maybe we ought to think about some of the stuff we say and do
Yeah.
before we do it.
Yeah.
So I'd like, I mean, if everybody agrees, let's be very specific about what we send back. Doesn't have to be long.
Yeah.
But just enough to send it back that y'all need to be focusing on this. Y'all need to understand what you're doing.
For minute 55 in the 218 meeting to share your thoughts of your constituents
Yeah.
on this particular decorum. Yes.
Yeah, we need a motion or do we just, we know what we're gonna.
I think, our city secretary could include that in the minutes, to ensure that the message gets relayed to our council.
We agree you should behave, we agree. We look forward to seeing your code of ethics update.
We look forward to seeing a note from you on when you will be discussing the code of ethics that, during study session.
Send you to press.
I'm sorry if I sound passionate about that, but it's, you
No,
know,
it's true.
we should have.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree. Yes,
It was just confirmed for me that the link to the code of ethics was incorrect on the website, so it was just changed.
so we just fixed something
Yeah.
by going section by section.
Yeah.
We did something great.
Thank you for bringing
Way to
it
go.
up.
Yes, good job.
Make sure that's recorded.
Okay, so next section, so we did, no, each section. We did have 2.02, we had another item, regarding,
We talk about our recommendations for this
Well,
as we
before-
go along, or do we wait for?
let's go over the city council ones first, because they may be the same or similar.
Oh, I didn't know there.
Oh, there's more, there's several.
Okay.
There's
Get
several.
warmed up, Brian.
Okay.
So the next one is, and again, some of these, we don't have a lot of background, so we can always put it back and say, we need a little more information. This one's discuss council accountability. Doesn't give us more than discuss council accountability. And so I think we do need we did ask council, when they sent us this information, if they had any additional context. And we didn't get any. And so I think at this point, we need more,
That goes right back to decorum.
yeah.
It's the site, it's what do you need?
Yeah, I see that and I think, all right, somebody need to put that on there, needs to be accountable. Tell us what you mean.
Yeah, so I think we need to print back and get more context as to what that means, and if there's something that's within this section, then we can discuss it at the next meeting when we discuss these any potential changes, but we don't have enough to go off of to make that, to discuss that at this point.
Yeah.
If everybody's okay with that. Okay, the next item in 2.02, discuss allowing director level employees and above to speak to council without fear of termination. That is, that's 2.02.
What I mean on, oh.
It's still, we're still under 2.02, y'all. We're still under
Right.
2.02. So basically what we had our attorney look at the items and see what, if we decided to do anything about it, that what section it would be under, and in this case, it would be under 2.02, and I think it goes back to that 2.02 section C. And potentially even code of ethics. So I think it's regarding fear of retribution to where staff should be able to, or director level employees should be able to speak to council without fear of termination. My understanding is that.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Brian.
There's something in charter that kind of provides some limitations on council talking to, staff members other than the city manager. So
Delegation of authority.
a city council member should not, under the charter, go to a director level person and say, this is what you need to do. City council is directed to go straight through Ben if they want something done at a city, at a director level.
Right.
And so, but it's a, on the flip side is sometimes there's just interaction. When I was on council, we talked with all the directors, but we had we didn't have any accountability issues. So, so there wasn't any friction. But if there's friction, then somebody can point the finger. Well, you were talking to the director of public works. You were talking to the director of.
And I think every city, man, I think it just, and when I was on council, same thing. You could talk to anybody that we wanted to, but there was never an issue of, oh, why are you talking to this person? It was like, well, this person's over the program, so why can't we talk to this person? Instead of losing information, as it filters, right? But I mean, that city manager has the ability to be able to, run their staff how they see fit. And so I think, I don't know if there is, I don't know if that should be something that should be under the charter, in my opinion.
I don't think it should be. I'm coming from business world where I had this. My predecessor didn't want anybody talking to staff members. I'm the other way. I want the staff members talking to other people within the department. Or within the company. And so I see this as operational. I operate differently than the other one did, and that will be back to the council and their direction with Ben and how they see things. But I think it's right to maintain what we have in the charter of there is a hierarchy because they need to know exactly how the direction flows. But that doesn't preclude conversations, but that's operational.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's something that should be in the charter. And I think it needs to be handled in a different manner outside of this particular document, in my opinion. Does anybody have any other comments, questions?
Send it back, we'll send a note, y'all need to.
Administratively. Okay.
I thought we were going with this, maybe I misunderstood the point of not necessarily a flow of communication, but more of a whistleblower type scenario, and I'm not sure where this is on that.
Yeah, it just says if you're, discuss allowing director level employees and above to speak to council without fear of termination.
And there's already whistleblower laws. So we, back to David's point about laws, those laws are already said that we have to abide by them because that's federal. And therefore, if somebody gets terminated, well, welcome to your lawsuit.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we collecting all of these right now in relation, because these are not in relation to section 2, it seems.
Yes, so that we had our attorney go through all of the different items and advise which section we should discuss it, because if we did decide to do something, it would be under that section.
Okay,
So we are,
so all of these are,
not all of them under section 2.02.
Oh, you're-
I have a list, yes, I have a list.
okay, so I don't have that list.
No,
Okay.
no.
That's where I was getting.
No.
Double secret list.
Yeah, no.
Is the decoder ring.
I do. Okay, so I think we're gonna cut it back to council with the recommendation that they need to handle this administratively. The other section under 2.02 is mandatory annual attendance of council member orientation of Public Information Act, Open Meetings Act, and ethics training.
I'm sorry, what if that there's not?
Well, this one says, again, mandatory annual attendance of council member orientation for Public Information Act, Open Meetings Act, and ethics training. And I think here, They have to do all of them, my understanding.
We have to do them.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I think the
Well,
point, what they were trying to say is annual attendance of the orientation. So anytime a new council member comes on, there's an orientation and they all have to attend.
Only, once in their term.
No, every year,
That was-
every turnover.
That was a suggestion.
Yes,
As right now, they only, that's what I mean. Right now, they only do it when their
right,
term starts and that's it.
right.
So once every 3 years. essentially.
Except for the ethics they have to take once a year. It's annual training. But the Public Information Act, Open Meetings Act is every 4 years.
Is this another recommendation by a council member?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Three of them,
Three of them.
Yeah, they want it.
Bennett
Fine.
Burton, David Reed, and V.F. Conta.
The fact that it's three of them, and it's. But it's still something that you.
Well, I mean, is it something that needs to be in the charter?
You go.
We can make the recommendation to make sure they do it, but I don't know if it needs to be in the charter. Again, we have to,
It goes back to what y'all were been talking about on them policing themselves, correct?
Yeah, professional organizations, CPA, lawyers, attorneys, right, real estate agents, we all have
Don't forget insurance people.
insurance people, we have continuing education.
We got feelings, we have feelings.
Continuing education requirements, right, and so make that part of the ethics that goes with policing them.
so adding, so I think putting it back to city council to add an amendment as part of code of ethics to ensure that they do just that, especially if they have 3, at least they have 3 that will vote for it,
Right?
ideally. Since they brought it up. Okay. So it looks like we're all in agreement with that one. The next one is, actually, that is all. Those are all the ones that are under section 2.02.
Number 10, under Bennett Burton, consider creating an independent ethics commission, is that part of this? or would that be- Where did you see that one falling?
Let me look. Allow director of employees council, you remember that one. Mandatory annual attendance.
It's right under that.
Orientation. Consider creating independent ethics commission. Is under, nope, that's under 2.02. You are correct. So this one is consider creating an independent ethics commission.
So isn't there a provision in the charter already that says the city council can establish their own commissions to district? We don't need to add what's already there.
They can add an app, if they can add an ad hoc commission, I believe. I don't know if they can add a,
They can add with, I think, cooperation manager divisions or departments, but I think they can create committees on their own.
I know they can create committees because we did that. Council.
That maybe
Ad hoc.
Right, so whether you call this a commission or a committee, they can set it up in using the proper verbiage.
Yeah.
So they've already got the authority to do it.
What I would want to know is what would the ethics commission technically do? Would they be the ones that would be overseeing? And in this case, they want to enforce oversight. So then when there's an ethics complaint, would it also then go to the commission to see if there's any? That's what I mean. And that's what I'm assuming is they're wanting to do is have an ethics commission that then they would review ethics complaints made. And then they would decide whether they think it's appropriate, but I think it would still go to the city manager, city manager, or the city attorney anyways, or the state, depending on what it is.
So it sounds like if you don't get your ruling when you're policing yourself, now we're appealing to another group.
Basically, it'll be another group.
It's kind of like, all of a sudden, how has this become a problem? It has not been a problem in the 60+ years that we've been chartered. Why do we need to this may be a tempest in a teapot. We're gonna get beyond it pretty soon because we'll have term limits, we'll have new people. Somebody's gonna make enough people in the city mad that they don't get reelected. But I don't think we're at a point where this has been such a chronic problem, systemic problem, that we need to go and add something to the charter.
Well, let me play devil's advocate though. Doesn't say it won't happen again. Especially because it has been happening, right? And so if it has been happening, I mean, I don't think it's something that needs to be in the charter review, but I do think we should advise our council members, we need to have discussion on this because this shouldn't be happening.
Right.
And so I think that we need to encourage, and I think it goes back to the messaging we keep going with some of these, it's, you know, there is, especially if you've been looking at council meetings and study sessions, and there have been. I think we need to do our due diligence to ensure that we let them know what we feel as their constituents. And just because it hasn't happened in 60 years or what have you, doesn't mean it won't happen again. It seems to just, the current climate seems to be doing a lot of this, you know, bringing all of these types of items. But I do think we should do our due diligence to create policies that, to help ensure this doesn't happen again, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just don't think that a commission or committee.
No, I don't think it needs to be here. And I don't think there needs to be another group when there's already a
Agree.
flow
Right.
and a group and a methodology for that.
Yeah, it'd be another bottleneck between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and
it's
you
filed
got
with
the
the
other
state,
danger
so is that
that
even legal?
you got a bigger danger is who's gonna appoint that people?
Yeah.
Who are they gonna be?
If there's three people that are mad at two people and the three people get more people on there,
Because what's
now
gonna
it's gonna
happen,
be,
because what's gonna happen is, okay, every council member can appoint somebody. It'd be like, to your point,
She said independent.
Right.
She didn't get appointed by
in
them.
whose words or whose definition is independent, it's a problem.
What did she mean, not appointed by the city council?
and then that, we don't know.
And who are these magical people that we're gonna find to do all this work?
You don't want that one.
She's observing.
So I, you know, again, I think this is another item that, based on what I'm hearing, that we put it back and say, we do need to resolve this, but it needs to be resolved with a different methodology than doing it through charter review.
Right, because that goes back to, I think David's point, there's nothing systemic.
No.
that The charter can address versus our discussion about adding members. I think there's a systemic thing that we're looking at, a population growth and what can we do to accommodate, you know, having enough votes to cover what our city is doing.
Mhm.
That's a valid point. This is something that I feel operational and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another avenue to be able to make changes through the code of ethics.
I have to say it has charter provision that establishes an ethics commission.
How did you?
Because they have never used it.
Sure that.
Just kidding.
These members, they have removed a mayor several years ago for ethics violations and completely ignored the charter provisions dealing with an ethics commission. It's cumbersome and it has all the same problems that you guys are.
Yeah. Okay. So we're on the right track. So we're gonna put it back. And I think with that one, that is the last 2.02 that I have on my list, from council requested topics. So now, 2.02, is there any other question, comment, concern regarding this section before we move to the next one? If you have any, Brian, I think you might mention something, or is it in a different section,
Yeah.
essentially?
The first sentence where it said who have been residents of the city for at least 1 year, I think it's probably worth defining what that means to be a resident, how much time, like, do you have a house and you spend 20% of your time here in the city, or more than 50 or 100?
I think there's a state, I think the state, isn't there a state provision that advises what a residence technically is? I think as long as it's,
I think you're right.
yeah, there is a state provision that says, I think you have, like, it has to be on your identification, like, there has to be, yeah, I think you have to just change it in your ID. That it's your permanent resident.
Okay,
I don't even.
David's
Right?
Is it?
We don't want, trust me, we don't want to define it. There are cases and AG opinions and ethics commission opinions out there that talk about that. It is extremely difficult to establish. It's extremely difficult to disprove.
That's what it is.
And I can't tell you how
but we've kicked people out for buying houses in other cities and not spending a majority of their time living in their district.
Good.
It
Wonderful.
seems that we should
Good for
make
you.
that a qualification for running for the
It
office,
is a qualification.
but you don't define it.
The state law does not contain a definition. And to be honest with you, the cases and the AG opinions and ethics commissions that talk about it, they all say the same thing. It's where you intend to be. It's where you live. But it's where you really intend to live and where you have some stuff. I had a council member in another city rented a room in a friend's house, allegedly rented a room, just to maintain residence.
Right.
I had somebody show up at a council meeting 2 months ago who said, this candidate is using my address as his home address. He doesn't live there. I'm getting his bills. It is an issue, a lot of times that you can't define it. You just can't define it. You can impose criteria, but when you're in college, you live in your dormitory, but that's not your residence if you still have stuff at home. I mean, if you're on vacation and you're renting a B&B someplace, it's hard, it's really.
Seems like.
I was looking at, there's 183 days for IRS purposes, state tuition, 12 consecutive months, voting 30 days, divorce filings 90 days to define residency.
Well, no, the court doesn't have jurisdiction in divorce cases, let's say, the resident county does, but it's a can of worms. And the more we try to define it or clarify it, the worse off we're going to be.
Can you tell me what a qualified voter, they have to be a qualified voter of the city?
That's really easy.
Is that a citizenship requirement?
Ask the voter registrar. Is this person registered to vote?
Yeah, registration.
You have to be a citizen of the
Have to be on the
United
list.
States.
You have to be on the list.
When in elections, when we qualify a voter, we make sure they are a resident of where they say, where they are supposed to be.
Does that mean you have to be a citizen?
Now that's a whole nother.
Well, yeah, that's totally irrelevant, but yeah, you have to be a registered voter.
Okay, but do you have to be a citizen? Yes, to be a registered voter?
It's built into, yes, I think you have to be a citizen to be able to register,
Okay.
at least theoretically.
The last sentence, a former employee should not be eligible to be elected.
What are you reading?
It's section 2.02A.
At the very end.
The last sentence, a former employee of the city shall not be eligible to be elected or appointed to the council until at least 2 years has elapsed since their termination of such persons.
Trainer at the gym or a lifeguard, man, you can't run for office or. Okay, well,
And then you run for election.
okay, so that's what the point you're trying to get to there, but what about people who are like Parks guy?
Well, then you have to, then do we want to be the ones to look at every single position within a city and say which ones you can and which ones you can't?
Well, I don't want to be the guy that tells the lawnmower guy he can't, at the park, that he can't run for office.
Can't demean, people, how they're making their living. I don't think that would look good, honestly, either.
Can't what?
Well, if you're the lawnmower guy and the other guy was a manager or something, we don't want to say, well, the lawnmower guy's, he can run because that's less,
There are a lot of
Valuable job,
unintended consequences with categorizing.
There
I
are
think it's-
unintended consequences with every single law ever put on books, and that's why I'm trying to say an unintended consequence of this is you're gonna prevent maybe some people from running for office. That's really not fair. I mean, I get, you don't want the city manager to run because he's got some closeness to the council or he's germane to certain conversations, but you don't want to tell my son, who's a lifeguard, that you can't run for city council because you were a lifeguard 2 years ago, even though it has nothing to do with running in the city.
Or if the city manager, fire and department director then runs for election, gets elected and fires a city manager. That's the reason why the provision is in there. I understand your concern, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that, my guess is gonna be that that charter provision was adopted because of the circumstance that happened. Similar to what I'm giving you as an.
It's a good example. I like how, it makes sense.
That makes sense, but
If
it
you want
doesn't make
you want
sense
some
to.
background of history, talk to us afterwards.
I don't, I get it, but I also think you should.
He knows something that I don't know.
Maybe you should say that, this is subject to override by, hands up.
We get into.
Sometimes your blanket covers a little more than you'd like, but your blanket is serving a bigger purpose. Yeah.
Is 2 years typical? Is that a normal amount of time to wait?
The other charters.
Yeah,
To that.
yeah, they're typical.
I mean, think about this, like, hey, I might wanna run for mayor because I've served in this charter review, I've served in this committee, I've served in this committee, and I was aquatics director of the city, so I love this city. Oh, you were aquatics director of the city? Now you can't run for office.
Sure you can.
No, I know, but what if I wanna run, I quit and now I can't run for 2 years because I was the aquatics director?
Well,
I don't have anything to do with the legislation of this city. I prevent people from drowning and I give them exercise programs.
You're in a position of authority, you're in a position of being able to, I won't say curry favor, but, give yourself, because of your position in the city, you get an advantage over somebody else, so. I mean, yes, and that level is lower, and the lifeguard is lower, but where are you gonna go now?
yeah.
But instead of going to circle, why don't we just vote?
I was gonna say, well, we can just take a straw vote and see if anybody wants to entertain, to be able to just look at this further and make any changes to the type of positions, and we can just do a straw hand vote. Is that okay with you, Brian?
It's fine.
Okay, anybody that would like to continue this discussion and potentially make changes to the charter as it relates to the 2-year qualifications, to be able to run for office as a former employee, raise your hand. All right, anybody that would not like to have the discussion, raise your hand.
Sorry.
You make valid points. You make valid points.
Just trying to do what's fair.
No. Okay, anything else? Anything else anybody has on 2.02? Okay.
I have one more.
Oh, sorry, no, go ahead, Brian.
It's never come up, but should it be a qualification of office that you are able to conduct business in English? I mean, is that legal?
What do you mean English? Like somebody with an accent or?
No, you should be proficient in English to the extent where you should be able to conduct city business and so forth without the need of.
You measure that?
Again, I think that opens us up to
Yeah.
potential discrimination and a whole host of other things.
But having English, didn't it recently get declared our national language?
But that's not.
You don't wanna go back to what happened back in 2008 when
No,
you
not-
declared
National level.
I don't know, but it's not a law, but I think it's
No.
a proclamation. We had a proclamation years ago, which like English was the official language. But no, it was not.
We had a lawsuit for that, so. I don't think we should open that up.
Interrupt first.
Yes,
We've had quite a bit of people leave. They're probably taking a bathroom break and we're getting close to quorum.
okay,
Do you want to take a break?
yeah, let's take 5 minutes. Is that okay? But we'll take a 5-minute break. Let's come back at 2:31. Exactly 5 minutes. 7:31.
There you go. Come on. Hey, on. 7-hour break.
7:31. Correction. Oh my gosh.
So.
Now.
Crystal, we gotta go through all this tonight.
We're gonna talk about that.
Well, I mean, you said it's gonna be a long, but I was just preparing myself.
We're being very thorough, which I love, but I.
We're very thorough.
This is our constitution of the United States. No, I am very, OCD when it comes to policy, so, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna gavel us back in at 7:34. Before we move on, so if you haven't noticed, we're in section 2.02, and we still have a plethora of pages to go through. So I think it does make sense, and I think, going section by section, making sure that we look over everything, making sure we don't miss anything. I think we do need to do our diligence to do that. We'll continue. What we did, when we looked at the schedule, Erin and I, we looked at, adding a few dates or having a few dates at the end in case we needed to shift things over. So we do have the ability to do that. This is one of those sections that we knew was gonna be a little longer. So, we'll keep going for a little while and around 8 o'clock, we can take a poll to see if you wanna go ahead and table, especially since we know we have some information that we need anyways. We can table and continue the discussion on this section next time and just move everything over. So we'll take a poll around 8 o'clock, see where we are, where we all are, and then go from there. We do have the ability to be able to push things out a little bit. Yes.
Just an idea, could we just talk, we've got 2.03 through 2.15, could we just like, are there sections that nobody has any comments on?
Well, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through each section. I mean, if we did our homework, I'm not gonna read through them. We'll go through each section. I'll go 2.03. I'll let you know if there's anything from city council. If there is, we'll go through it. If there isn't, I'll open it up to you. If there isn't anything, and we have been doing that. It's just 2.02 had a lot of provision recommendations from council. The other ones don't have as much. I think we maybe have about 5 more within section 2 from council. So I think the next will go pretty quickly. This section particularly though had quite a few for 2.02. So, so if y'all are okay with that, we'll kind of take a pulse at 8 o'clock, see where we are and go from there. That's okay. All right. So 2.02, anything else under 2.02? No, go ahead.
So in 2.02.
You got to go section by section. Sir?
Yeah, I know. We have, as the qualifications for running prior to the election, this is about the 4th line down.
Yeah.
Who has never been convicted of a felony offense. But you flip over to, C5, where we're talking about a member of council may be removed from office. I'm thinking about this from a consistency standpoint.
Sure.
And maybe you guys have said, man, not worried about it. Running for council and being qualified versus being on council, if you're convicted of a felony offense or an offense involving moral turpitude. So for some reason, being on council, you have 2 potential things that create a disqualifier, whereas.
So removing section 5 and 2.02C and then just adding that language with the 2.02A.
Well, so the background on that is, I don't remember whether it was a last charter review or 2 before this one. There was a long discussion about what does an offense involving moral turpitude really mean? And at the end of the day, we fixed half of it. And at the end of the day, it's one of those terms that's so hard to define. It's kind of like, you know it when you see it. David, you know, and Chase, you guys, on the legal side, we can point to certain things, but where does it stop? And so we decided to remove it from 2.02 and it got out of A, but it doesn't appear that it got out of C5. So my thought is for consistency's sake, is remove it, not because we want to give people more reign to do things that are nefarious, but we want to be consistent on this. So either add it back to A or remove it from C5.
The catch.
Yeah. I mean, if there was discussion before and it was removed from section A and it was just missed to confer with section 5, I don't see an issue with removing any offense involving moral turpitude.
So I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate. And right now, we are in an extremely charged. We're in an extremely charged environment. We've got the Epstein stuff. We got super hyper focused on assaults and moral turpitude would bring in those. Let's make sure we're not setting either ourselves up for, hey, what do you guys want? You're really not caring about the assault victims or setting up counsel for that same thing, or the city being pilloried from a national level of, here's Farmers Branch. They're Epstein friendly or something like that. So that's the devil's advocate side is, instead of removing it, maybe we put it back again.
Well, the thing is, if it's not a felony, then it's a misdemeanor. If it's a misdemeanor, is it of sufficient import to throw somebody off the council?
And that's gonna be a case by case type of
But
thing.
so. I would go with the first thing you said, just take it out.
Yeah.
Bribery, some other crimes, embezzlement, perjury. Could you commit those and it'd be a misdemeanor, but still fall under the moral turpitude, but
Right,
you could
right.
still be pulled out.
Hot checks are moral turpitude, but
Right.
do you want somebody, I mean, I suspect that there's folks in this room, and I might be one of those, when I was Bud Shutter, I wrote a check that bounced. And technically, I didn't do it on purpose, but that is
Well, so
arguably,
I would argue, okay, once, twice, it's still, you can do it 2 or 3 times and be moral turpitude.
Mhm.
But I think that rises to the level of you probably don't want them on council, because
where do you get
Go
that?
ahead, Chase.
So how it reads now is you elect an official and you would know what their background is. And then if they get convicted of a crime of moral turpitude while on the council, then you would have the opportunity to remove them at that point. So when you're electing someone, you should know, are there crimes of moral turpitude?
Well, in this case, in this section, the way I read it is, to run, it just says some member been convicted of a felony offense. The other section is, while they're in, you can't do a felony, but also,
yeah, bribery that could be,
yes,
go down to a misdemeanor,
yeah,
but it's still bribery.
yeah.
So I get that you want to be consistent, but do you really want to put this, all these changes go to the voters, right? Do you really want to put up to the voter, we're scratching out the same.
That's a good point.
That's why,
That's good.
yeah, that's why I was playing devil's advocate that not really. But for the sake of at least having us see the inconsistency, let's decide how to deal with it.
I think if you add it there as a qualification to running, that could be interpreted as being able to go after someone before they even run, right?
Yeah.
Or there could be an abuse of power there to do that, so.
So while they're
I think
there,
it's- I don't think it's.
should they be, behaving? Yes,
Yeah,
right?
and I think those moral turpitudes that come out in the election process.
I'm perfectly fine with keeping it the way it is. I just
Okay.
wanted to bring up the inconsistency so that
Sure.
we see it and we thought about it and we just made an educated decision.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So I think we're all in agreement to just keep it in there? All right,
Yes,
okay.
David will stop bouncing checks.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they would do that a lot.
Okay, anything else for 2.02? Speak now. Okay. All right, next section, 2.03. All right, let's see. We do not have anything under 2.03 from council. Does anybody else have anything for 2.03? Compensation expenditure shuttle policy. Chris?
What is the justification for the first sentence? The mayor shall receive a monthly stipend for $400 and each council member shall receive a monthly stipend for $200.
They didn't need to be paid and now they get paid.
I can explain that one because that one was all the last two charters.
Yeah, I wanted some kind of background on that.
The mayor if you go back and you look, the mayor is the pitcher head of the city. While he doesn't have a lot of power on voting, he is the representative of the city. So he is out doing more, events, traveling, glad handing, lunches, dinners. So the thought back when it was presented was the mayor spends a little more of his own money. He should have the ability to not, to at least be repaid a little bit more.
That's not much.
No.
No.
I mean, come on.
James?
Do they get the 1099 form or are they getting a W-2 form? Are they considered employees of the
But
city?
they can't be employees of the city.
So
We
what?
already established that.
All right, let's talk about that. All right, I'm trying to not to be proactive and what you guys have figured this stuff out, but here's the deal. It is very common in many cities, except for the smaller cities, for the mayor and council members to get some type of a stipend, some form of compensation, 400 and 200. It is pretty much on the low end of the scale. But when charter propositions show increases in compensation for mayors and council members, voters love to single those out and vote against them. It's not that it's a lot of money or that it's a little money. It's not to compensate them or reimburse them for having to take people out for lunch. It's because they spend, for a lot of cities, this is not a part-time job as a council member. This is a full-time job. And to get absolutely nothing in exchange for it is discouraging qualified people to do that kind of thing. And it doesn't require very much money to make them feel like they're getting something out of it. But, a few $100 is kind of
I don't think we're talking about why, I think we're talking about how they get
And
paid.
then.
Our time crunch, right?
Well, that's a problem, because council members prefer to get 1099s. There's an IRS regulation out there, that says that if they're a council member, they're getting paid for working for the city, doesn't matter what you call it, they're getting W-2s, and we gotta take withholdings out of it. Council members don't like that. If there was a way around that, if anybody here is a CPA or knows a CPA or plays one on TV,
I play one on TV.
if there was a way to get that done, I don't think it can be done by charter.
No.
But if there's a way to get it done, our council members would really like to know. I'm looking at you right now.
Yeah, it's sticky.
It is, and the problem is that if the 100% penalty kicks in, then staff is the one that gets tagged with that.
Correct.
And that's absolutely not. We'll give them W-2s and protect staff instead. So but it's not a charter proposition. It's an operational prerogative. So they'll want to increase their pay, you have to do that, but other than that.
I was going towards that end too with my notes on this, is it seems low. I don't think I want to put anything in here of like COLA increases or anything, but I don't know, I don't want to kick it to council to do, because that's like Congress members voting their own pay raises. So I feel like there's something there that.
Well, then some council members actually donate it back. They donate it to a nonprofit. And I mean, and that's their
I'm gonna create a
prerogative.
nonprofit, thank you.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna create a nonprofit.
No. But I mean, it's just, it's so nominal, right? I mean,
Yes.
I think there was a lot of discussion around that last charter review, from my
It
understanding.
was the last charter review that we did, so it's only been in place we only did that 3 years ago, so it's only been in effect for 2 years, so.
And it wasn't something that came from the council. I don't know if we need to open that up, but I mean, they do spend a lot of time.
I saw some of the cities have them for meeting day, like that, yes,
Yeah,
because then you set a meeting so that you can get paid.
yeah. Anything else on 2.03?
So is stipend considered pay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is it in the next sentence that it says that they don't get paid?
Yeah, that was my thought.
Because they're not getting paid a salary, they're getting, the stipend, the term stipend is used as effectively, David, you may help me out here, but more or less recognizing that you're incurring cost, your own costs.
So in my company, we reimburse people for cell phone. I've moved towards, I just pay them on their payroll, a stipend for their cell phone. Now, in that case, I don't tax it. It falls under different IRS rule, but it's not compensation. It's not pay for performance. It is simply, you're here, you get something for being here. It shows up on their pay stub, but it's not compensation.
Proactive reimbursement, would that be a nice way to put it?
Effectively, yeah.
But what it saves a lot of paperwork too, is they don't
Yes.
have to submit every little invoice, they don't have to keep miles, tolls. There was a lot of discussion about it saves time for the staff, it saves time for the council members, but it's a fair, reimbursement.
And that's how I did mine, yeah, same concept.
Yeah, and doesn't the council have to decide, they decided what's reimbursable and what isn't anyways? So.
Then I think the next one should be, suggest that there's an ordinance that's what's reimbursable. For instance, when we do our sister city trips to Germany and wherever else we have them, if a council member goes, some of that can be reimbursed or paid by the city. But that's a whole nother area, and that one requires.
It requires approval.
Yeah.
Yeah, it requires approval.
So,
So I'm just curious, if a stipend is considered pay, does it make sense in the very next sentence to say then they shall serve without pay or
It
compensation?
is not,
When you just said that they'll,
it is not,
But it's
it's
two
not
different
paid in the terms of it, the IRS payment. And
Right.
it's not income, it's reimbursement of expenses. So
That's what this,
No, it's,
after that, it says they shall be entitled to reimbursement of necessary expenses.
no, they get the stipend and reimbursement of expenses.
Mm-hmm, they get both.
They get both, right? So it's in addition. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay, that's the way I'm reading it.
no, it is,
That's what it says.
it is. They get both.
Well, Google says that a stipend is a fixed periodic payment, often lower than a salary, designed to cover living expenses or support individuals in training, research, or volunteer roles, rather than for direct labor.
Okay, that's not the way we discussed it, or the way that it came about as being suggested as a charter review and a charter amendment. I think and again, that's a AI definition. It's not the all encompassing one.
Again, that's my 2 cents.
I'm just saying.
But I think what Janet's trying to say is, the first sentence says, we pay them a stipend. The second sentence says, we don't pay them anything.
Correct.
That's what she's trying to say.
Yeah.
Then ultimate question is that
Did that-
a big enough issue to have it put to the voters to change 2 words or 3 words about?
Well, it also has to deal with, does it make sense? Because this looks like it's crossing each other. It's like Xing each other out. Because we're saying we're paying them and then we're not paying them. And so, go ahead, Chase. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think of the word stipend, just from experience at various organizations, as sort of a gift of appreciation, not any kind of salary. Like someone charges a fee to come speak, $5,000 for me to speak, but if they will accept a stipend of some amount just to show appreciation. That's kind of the way I see this here, is that we are appreciating other expenses that the council members may have, and we're offering a stipend, but they do not receive pay for their service.
Right.
So I don't see any reason to change that. That's clearly.
I see where you're getting at, Janet, because it kind of seems like it's counterintuitive.
And I see where you're coming from too.
Okay,
Yeah, makes sense.
okay. Okay, cool. Anything else? 2.03? All right, 2.04, we do have one. 2.04 is regarding vacancies in council. There was one regarding holdover provision. And this came from the mayor. Holdover provision needs to be revised. Recommendation or things to consider was, as soon as they resign, they should vacate office. Currently, they're able to serve with full voting rights until a special election is held. The council member who has resigned is no longer bound by residency requirements. All council members should reside in the city and be able to provide proof of residency at any time requested. So I'm actually going to turn it over to our city attorney to talk a little bit about holdover provision before we.
So to take it now.
No.
I was waiting for 8 o'clock. All right, so.
8 minutes.
Filibuster. Yeah. This is actually a rather important issue, and it's not something that we can change by charter. State law, the Texas Constitution actually has holdover provisions for members of governing bodies. If you resign, or for some reason, for certain kinds of disqualifications, you are no longer eligible to serve as a member of the city council, you hold over in office. And you continue to attend meetings, you continue to vote, and you continue to participate as a member of the governing body until your successor takes the oath of office, has been qualified and takes office. The purpose behind the constitutional provision is to make sure that there's continuity in government. There are some circumstances in which more than one member is booted off the council or is disqualified for one reason or another. Government cannot stop. Government needs to continue. Those people by constitution will hold over in office and exercise the authority of office until their successors are qualified to take an oath of office. And qualified and take an oath means either appointed or elected. There are some limitations on that, and our charter reflects that. And when we have 3-year terms of office, it's more important. It is even more important to have holdovers, to have a holdover in office requirements or provisions. If someone were to move out of town, they'll continue to serve. If they resign and their resignation is accepted, they'll continue to serve. There are some limitations, though. If they're convicted of a felony offense, they are disqualified and can't serve. If they've been booted off the council by a majority vote for ethics violations, they're disqualified from service. And so there is not a really clear list as to when you are disqualified versus when you're entitled to hold over in office. But residency, clearly you can hold over. Resignation, clearly you hold over.
the state of Texas deal for
Yeah.
what Mayor Lynn was saying. That's the state of Texas
We
law.
can.
So you can't just say that they're gone because they resigned and they moved out of,
It's the Constitution.
there you go.
That just-
Well, that pretty much answers that one.
So the exception there would appear to be, our exception is the way we got it started written, is if it's within less than 12 months before the term ends.
Because we have 3-year terms of office, there are other constitutional provisions that say if the term of office exceeds 1 year and 1 day, something odd, we are required to call a special election. If the term of office, if the remaining term of office is less than a year, we can appoint somebody by council majority vote. But the person who is no longer qualified to serve will still hold over until appointment or election ends.
So really, this is in a way, a solution seeking a problem. Yes, the potential exists that somebody, we've had people resign. That as far as I know, they have not stayed and voted. Now, if I'm a constituent, I'm saying, well, I don't have a representative, but it hasn't created, again, go back to that. Historically, it hasn't created any real issues about somebody resigning and sticking around and voting. If they did, they're representing their district. If they didn't, they've elected not to represent their district, but we hadn't had a problem of any magnitude on the way it is. So we've got the special election within 120 days. So either we got 120-day absence at worst, or we've got the 12-month provision and we can appoint them almost immediately. So
I think the bigger concern is related to what we'll talk about later is the, how they're voting. And I think it's under one of the items of discussion regarding meetings via Zoom, if they have resigned. And I think that's part of the issue, and I think we'll talk about that in 2.15. I agree with you. I think the holdover provision is constitutional. I think it's a moot point, like we're not gonna be able to make any changes to that. But I do feel like most recently has been some issues and conversation around being able, like resigning and then, still technically you still can have holdover, right? Because it was, there were still like 2 years of that particular position, right? So under the charter, they need to hold a special election, but it's, okay, now you're doing Zooms and executive session, right? We don't know what's going on. Are you recording or you're not recording? So it's just, there's a lot of issues there, but I think we'll tackle those in 2.15. But I do think there is a discussion here regarding that particular case, maybe not the holdover, because that's constitutional, but I do think there is definitely a discussion that we need to have there.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll, Aaron will put it back to the council and advise that that's a Texas constitutional provision that is outside of their purview.
Right.
Okay, we don't have anything, the next section is 2.05, presiding officer, mayor pro tem, deputy mayor pro tem. We don't have anything, any recommendation for review by city council for this section, anything, does anybody have anything under section 2.05 they would like to discuss? No?
That idea of the mayor having a at-large vote might impact this section as well, if we go that route, wouldn't it?
And when we discuss that provision, potentially, we don't know. I don't know. I think we have to figure that out.
It would be one of the changes that would be cascaded if we decide to go forward with, but yeah.
Okay. 2.06. 2.06, we do, this one is in regards to powers. We do have, two, or actually one rather, because it's two council members brought up the same provision for consideration. Use of city attorney. Each member of council should consult with the city manager and receive approval before contacting the city attorney. Council members may be able to contact the city attorney, but incur no more than $1,000 in legal fees without approval of the city manager. If the matter of discussion involves the city manager, then the council representative should consult with the mayor and or designated official for approval. So I think this dealt with an issue regarding a council member using their city attorney as somewhat their attorney, as a, no. And just discussion around a provision to prevent that from happening, and if you do wanna consult, then there would be, you know, depending on what it is, the city attorney should not incur more than $1,000 in legal fees, because we pay for the attorney for consultations with counsel. And so this is a recommendation to advise that it has to go before the city attorney, or sorry, the city manager, to receive approval before contacting the city attorney. To see if it's something that would be within the provision of what a council member should be asking the city attorney, or is it more of a personal nature, as opposed to an official city business? And so the two council members did bring this up. And so, let's see, 2.0. Yeah, specific, and then the other provision from the other city council member, well, I guess, well, let's discuss this one first and we'll go to the next one. Questions, comments, concerns around that? I do think, I think it makes sense. I mean, a council member should not be, you know, they can, if they have something related to, you know, ethics, this, they can call the state, right? But they shouldn't be using, there should be a filter as to when they can go to the city attorney with issues and when they shouldn't, because we don't, between them and the city attorney. And so, and city manager, a question for you.
Yes.
When when a council member does go to the city attorney goes to, advises that, hey, I had a 1 hour conversation. Do they share, or can they share what they discussed with the city attorney with you? If the council member didn't discuss it directly with you?
Can the council member share with me what they discussed with
Because
me?
the city attorney discussed with you what they discussed with the council member.
That's gonna be, he serves the city first, and so that would be up to him and the city council member if they want to share with me. Just because a council member had the discussion with the city attorney does not mean it's disclosed to me. Most things are coordinated together, but the confidentiality of the topic is between the city attorney and his clients, which is the whole city, which includes the council and myself and staff as needed. So it's not an automatic tell me what they're working, because they may be working on something that has nothing to do with the operations of the city. It may be something they're working on in the political arena, or crafting policies, and that's perfectly between them and the city attorney.
I'm right here.
But is that?
Between her and the city.
But I have a question regarding that, because I think if it's not germane to their inner workings of the city, they shouldn't be, in my opinion, they shouldn't be contacting the city attorney.
Can I give you,
Yes,
everybody, some,
please, give us some
Yes.
examples.
but this is an unusual, thing for me to talk about. Because it pertains to me directly, and, you know, I don't want to be accused of giving
Sure.
any kind of recommendation that's in my own self-interest, but, in connection with the city attorney stuff, there were some issues with prior city council, with prior city attorneys and the city council that did not involve me, at least not directly. I had to fix everything after the fact, but, my responsibility under the disciplinary rules of professional ethics or professional conduct of the state of Texas, the lawyer's code of ethics. I have an obligation to represent the city zealously within the bounds of the law. I have an obligation to maintain the confidences of my client. And when I say city, that means not just the city, the farmers branch as a body politic, but that means the city council as a group. That means each council member individually in their official capacity. And in some circumstances, that means department directors. Of course, it means city manager, but department directors going down from there. So it's kind of an unusual, if there are conflicts internally, it becomes difficult to navigate. In answer to your question to Ben, if I'm speaking with a council member on a topic and they're asking me for legal advice, I don't need to ask the council member if they wanted to maintain, they want to be maintained on a confidential basis. The confidentiality under the code is automatic. Unless it's something that it's clear and apparent from the conversation that Ben's gonna know about it. Or if I ask for permission to share. But my conversations with council members, even when I send in my bills, I will just simply indicate, telephone conference with council member, and then I'll put the initials of that person down there, and I will not identify what the subject was. I'm not allowed to.
Under your, like jurisdiction, if it's something that's clearly not city business or something that is more on a related to, I don't know, something on the campaign side or something else, then you would then tell the individual, this is actually not something that I can discuss because it's outside of the purview of the business of the city?
I get phone calls from the police chief in Corsicana all the time, who I'm handling a lawsuit for. They tell me all about his retirement, but I don't bill the city for that. And if it's not city related, I won't and can't bill the city for it. If they're asking me personal stuff or stuff that is not within the scope of my representation as a city attorney, I can't bill the city. You understand how that works. I will bill the city for a consultation with the council member if the consultation deals with city business. They tell me what they're gonna do when they retire, I'm not gonna bill this, I can't.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to entertain the conversation, but I can't bill the city for it. The other thing that you need to be aware of is that, and by the way, a lot of this stuff, but I understand the motivation behind that. But Joe, you need to also understand that we're talking about a city charter, a structural provision of city government, and not an ordinance or a policy, and that's something like that really is like ethical issue that need to be policed by the council.
No, and I'm not saying that needs to be on charter, but I do think, I kind of want to figure out what would it be under, because I do think it's a discussion that we need to have, that needs to be had. I just don't think it needs to be, not in here, but I was just curious to see how everything's currently handled in the way, because my understanding, like when I was on council, it's like we discussed it in executive session, we add certain things, because to me, it's like there's transparency, constituents.
Right.
But maybe that's just, me.
It's been dying, I usually raise it.
Sorry, go ahead, Trina. I'm so sorry.
She's looking at me and then
I'm so sorry, Trina. Go ahead.
As a city attorney, if you have a council member or someone of the city that brings a topic up to you that's not related to city business, you inform them that you're not gonna advise them in that capacity.
That's right.
Issue.
Not at all. I don't say that at all.
Yes.
I don't say that at all. If they call me and they're chit chatting about the weather.
No, but that's not what we're saying.
Specific issue.
If it's a specific issue and asking for legal advice on an issue that is not city related, then what would you say to them?
You mean like, for example, if they wanting advice regarding a divorce
Sure.
or personal business?
Sure.
A council member in the city once said, I'm getting sued because I have a trailer that this guy says belongs to him and not me. Can you handle that? No. My answer is no. That's beyond the scope of my representation,
Pretty clear.
not
Yeah.
qualified to
Yeah.
handle that kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I was asking, that I needed, like that, what is the current, under your provision, what would you do if a city council member came in with something that does not regarding city business, but asking for legal advice? What then would be the next step?
generally, I'm not qualified to provide legal advice in connection with areas beyond my area of expertise. That includes divorces, mergers and acquisitions, you name it. But I can't represent council members personally.
So we would never get billed for you giving advice outside of city.
Of course,
Okay,
of course. That would be unethical.
so this is
So it's not germane.
But there is one other thing that you guys
It
need to be
is,
aware of.
but
Something else you need to do, and I've been uncomfortable saying this. As it stands right now, the charter, if you read it loosely or strictly, the city council does not appoint the city attorney. The city manager does. Now, the person, I'm looking at Ben, looking for input or contribution, but it is common in most city charters and in most home rule cities for the city council to appoint the city manager, the city attorney, the municipal judge.
that's an
or
exception that we're gonna
judges.
talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, under
Okay.
2.06.
Just for one of the attorneys, I wanted to get this off.
Sorry, yes.
Bending this around, right?
Yes. But yes, that
If
is.
you guys wanted to consider, absent objection from the city manager or charter proposition, that would, authorize appointment of the city attorney, by city council. And I'm looking at Ben for input, because what he does is that I know he was uncomfortable about it too, but he's technically the one who gets to appoint. But if he appoints me and the council doesn't want me to be appointed, that creates a huge problem for him. I mean, I don't know if he has any objections at all.
Because we still have to finish the other provision regarding the.
Would, do you want me to give an answer to this question?
Yeah.
Of course, that's not parking lot.
Go ahead.
The way it works is they're not appointed by charter, so technically we treat it as a contract to be approved by the city council. So the city council approved the attorney through another pathway, which is currently we use our purchasing policy. His contract is above my limit for approval. So the council has approved, and the current attorneys for the last 3 contracts, they also dismissed and the previous contracts. The council's involved, it's just not formal. It's an informal way we get to it. It would be much cleaner to have the council approve and appoint the city attorneys or dismiss the city attorneys and give them performance feedback because they interact with the city attorney a lot. Staff interacts more, so it's a partnership, but there's not a clear and clean pathway for the council to guide the attorneys, hire and release the attorneys. It's informal through the contracting process.
Thank you. Okay, well, we'll come back to that because we still need to figure out, there was a recommendation for provision recommendations by Mayor Lynn regarding the use of city attorney. But I think it looks like that's something that is more, structural in nature, not something that would be put in the charter review. So I do think that does need to be discussed, but this may not be the avenue to just have that discussion. But we do, I think, want to make the recommendation that it does need to be discussed as it relates to, those recommendations. Okay, is everybody in agreement with that? Okay, no opposition, all right. Going into 2.06, continuing the discussion with, the provision that Mayor Pro Tem Burton advised of, which is the hiring of city attorneys. So we started with the conversation as it relates to hiring. As city manager mentioned, it's currently part of the purchasing workflow, not necessarily directly the city attorney is not directly hired by the council. But, there is discussion to include hiring of city attorney directly by council within the provision, within this section. Any discussion on that? So it seems like it would be cleaner as long as there's an understanding then that there would be a partnership between city management and council whenever it comes to the evaluation, which I'm sure that's part of it already when it comes to any evaluation. Okay.
Question for Ben. Or the way it's currently set up, is the relationship with our attorneys reviewed or renewed on an annual basis or periodic basis?
It is reviewed annually now. It wasn't always the formal feedback loop, but so that's something the current council structures have put in place to say, give feedback to the attorneys, so there can be that feedback loop, so they understand how they're performing and doing.
Yeah, so it's reviewed, but not necessarily renewed. So it's not a recurring contract. It's once we're here, they're here as long as council doesn't say it's time to entertain bids from other firms.
David, I don't believe there's a time bound on your contract, is there? Nope. And honestly, that's good for stability for the law firm because it's not easy for them to, we're a high energy, high use city of legal services. So to bring an attorney in and a good attorney in is not always the easiest thing to do. And the Seltzer Club will say this, David has done a fantastic job for the city of Farmers Branch. And I speak his operations, I'm sure if you talk to council members, they'll tell you the same thing. They're very happy with his work, his billing, and how he treats everyone.
I think it's a good thing to not have a set time frame. I think it's better to make the
That's the
council.
will of the council. In
Yeah.
this case, if we decided to make the change, it would be just like, it'd be the will of the council. So I think for this one, if we decide to move forward with this, it would be an amendment to section 2.061, appoint and remove the city manager, the city attorney, and the city judge. Correct?
We don't want to add judge in that list.
No, the judge is already there.
Right. But,
We would add the city attorney to
right.
section 2.061. Up.
You just remove them, judge?
Yeah, you have a problem with the judge.
Appoint and remove city manager and city attorney. City judge, they appoint by definition, but the removal process is quite different. It's established by state law and by other federal provisions.
So you.
So we have to, so that, the way it's written now is in opposition to us.
It's not against city, it's not against state law, it's just that if you scroll down, it's also 2.12. Doesn't need to be a
Specific process for removing the city manager and judge.
It's a process for removing this to the judges, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think right now, we should amend it to say city attorney and take out judge.
Plus, we're an attorney for judge.
Okay.
That makes sense.
City manager.
It's not following.
So we're saying that there, we can appoint a judge, but removing a judge has completely different provisions. So if we keep removal of the judge, that actually, that wouldn't make, you can't actually do that.
But there's a specific provision for removal of the city manager as well, so I'm thinking that you leave one the way it is, and you add another one that says that the city council will select the city manager or the city attorney. Have a separate line altogether, because we don't have the process of having 4 council members decide, are you gonna appoint this one or remove the city manager or the judge?
If you wanted to, if you were inclined to recommend to the council a charter provision that talks about the employment of city attorney, then you would say council has the authority to appoint and remove at will the city attorney to serve at the pleasure of the council. You won't put implicitly licensed in Texas to practice law, in good standing, all that kind of stuff, similar to what you currently have to work, the judge position.
So it wouldn't be in 2.06, we would actually,
If you wanted to add, if you want to do more than just simply say they have the power to appoint and remove, you wanted to do more than that, it would be a different charter provision.
I don't think we need,
How much more would you want?
I don't think we need to, put it more.
Up to y'all. Up to y'all.
I was just thinking we could just add it to city manager, add city attorney to section 2.06.1.
I think the only reason I'm saying you don't do that is because there's certain later provisions about how to remove, if you use the word remove in 2.1, there are provisions to remove the city manager and remove the city attorney that requires special votes or a supermajority from council. So if you stuck the city attorney in there right now, there's not an obligation, there's not a rule that you have to have a supermajority to replace the city attorney.
The same is said for municipal judge. Okay. In 2.12. 2.12.
So we're enumerating very specifically what you have to do to remove the judge. There have to be some specific reasons, whereas city attorney, we may decide that it's time we don't like them. They're not as good as they used to be. David moves on and the person that replaces David is incompetent. You don't need to go through, you don't have to interlineate all these reasons why in the charter, why you would replace your city attorney. That's why I'm just saying keep it separate, because we don't need to add a provision on what are all the reasons why, reason why we can remove the city attorney. Pleasure. Right, it's at will.
Okay.
We don't have to have a reason. It may just be that the city manager recommends to the city council, hey, I think there's a better law firm. And so that's why you leave it at will, whereas the other two aren't necessarily at will.
We created as 14.
I think you just have, yes.
So it
14.
doesn't.
14,
Because then we'll have to move it, because then we'll have to move everything.
right. Exactly.
So then we have okay. Then we have a recommendation to add a 14 to section 2.06. Appoint and remove city attorney. Okay.
Just a 3 out of 5 majority vote, right? That's what we're talking about here.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we'll vote on all of these at the end, or maybe at the next meeting.
Can I ask one? Where is it written now that the city manager appoints the attorney? Where in the charter?
It's not in the charter, it's in the minutes administrative,
Oh, okay.
it's under the purchasing workflow.
See, I was kind
For
of
the city.
up here.
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't say it's expressly, but by implication, that's how it has to work. All right.
yeah. Okay, anything else for 2.06? Okay, it is 8:19. I don't wanna, we still have, obviously, a little bit to go. We do have quite a number of discussion items for, some of the other sections from city council, recommendations, and I'm sure there are probably some that you have. I kind of want to take, like I said, we do have some dates at the end that we kind of reserved in case we needed to go over with any of these sections, and so we can always move everything back. If we wanna go ahead and, go ahead and stop here and adjourn and potentially and then take up the next section, 2.07, at the next meeting next month. But I kind of want to take kind of a straw poll, like just to show of hands. Who would kind of want to just parking lot this right now and to continue the conversation next time, and who wants to kind of drive through and continue and get it done today? I would make the recommendation of us to just parking lot this and come back next month and just move everything over. Does anybody have any concerns with that, with just stopping right here and continuing the conversation? And we still have some information we need anyways, and so I think it'd be great to just have that information as we continue the conversation. And again, everything that we discussed today, if there were any potential changes, which there were, we will, take those up for vote at the very end, or at the next meeting, just like we did today.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, well, would it be a motion to, would it be a motion to adjourn or a motion to suspend and then continue?
I think it would.
I'm just asking. Either way, it's fine. Okay, motion to adjourn. Okay, then we'll go ahead and, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and I think Brian.
Yes.
Okay, motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dan. All in favor, say aye. All right. Any opposition? So we are adjourned at 8:20.
Get back to session.
Who has the attendance? Here, sorry. Can y'all sign that, please?
We're being very thorough.
Yeah.
Being very thorough.
Oh my God.
Oh, sorry.